Hi, I'm Samara, the holistic climber, climbing training and wellness coaching. I'm a registered nurse and a certified personal trainer. And I wanted to talk today about my personal journey that has been going on since at least 2015. So I've been dealing with it now for about 8 years. And I've basically felt really ill. I have periods where I seem to have more energy, but it has become, over the years, really noticeable to me that I'm not like most people, and especially the outdoorsy people that I spend time with. And so I've been searching for treatments and really anything that could help me feel better over the last 8 years. And I've finally realized and learned about and came across myalgic encephalomyelitis. And the minute that I read about it, I knew I was reading about myself. And for anyone out there that has had COVID and has experienced symptoms after what is considered the recovery period for COVID, that is really similar to myalgic encephalomyelitis, if not the same thing. So the other term that I'm not as much a fan of is chronic fatigue syndrome. And the problem with chronic fatigue syndrome is that is basically kind of a throwaway diagnosis that a lot of doctors look at, and they will just think that it's in your head. And it's really hard because you may look okay and relatively healthy on the outside, but you really might not be okay. And what is being discovered about chronic fatigue syndrome and ME and long COVID and post-treatment Lyme disease, the connecting factor for a lot of these is post-viral syndrome. So there are some cases where it appears to be genetic, and maybe sometimes it can be brought on by an extremely stressful or traumatic event. But what I'm seeing is vast majority is a post-viral syndrome where the body can never fully recover after getting this virus. And for me, the virus was Epstein-Barre virus, which Epstein-Barre virus causes mono. So I knew even in, I remember in 8th grade, I had a teacher that had mono, and she ended up being out like for the rest of the school year. I don't even know if she returned to teaching. And so I knew mono could be very difficult to recover from long term. But when I was tested positive for it in 2015, my doctor at the time said that I should recover from it after 3 months. And when I didn't recover from it after 3 months, I was immediately diagnosed with depression. And that's really challenging for those of us that are experiencing this, because depression is certainly a factor. If you want to be doing things and you're not able to anymore, of course like you're going to be depressed. That's completely understandable. And so it's almost a form of gaslighting from the medical community. I know that they don't intend it, and I know that they're just doing the best that they can with the tools that they have available to them. But it's, I spent 8 years, back and forth in my head. Am I just depressed, or am I really sick? And why can't I feel good? Why do I feel so bad every day? And now there's a lot more research coming out that actually there's a lot of complicated research that it could be related to cytokines. It could be related to insufficient natural killer cells, which is part of our immune system. It seems pretty accepted, as far as I can tell, that there is mitochondrial damage. And the mitochondria in each and every one of our cells is what creates the energy for our cells, and it's what creates the energy for our bodies. And so if our mitochondria are damaged, we can't continue doing the things that other people do, because we don't have fully working energy systems in our body. And I also study exercise science, and so, part of that is energy systems training and trying to most efficiently create ATP in the body and utilize that ATP. And ATP is the currency of energy in our body. However, if you don't have functional mitochondria, you will not have the ability to have as much ATP as other people. And that's going to become very obvious in whatever you're trying to do. It can affect us mentally and physically. Sorry, that's my toaster going off. So yeah, this is very challenging. It's a spectrum disorder. So some people can be so disabled from this that they have to stay in bed all day. They're sensitive to light and sounds. They're sensitive to chemicals and chemical smells. And other people like me, I'm able to get around and walk around and move my body and exercise, but depending on what I do, I will always pay a price. And so one of the hallmark signs of chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, is post-exertional malaise. So instead of, like working out and having some soreness and being a little more tired for a few days, that's completely natural. Versus, if I were to go snowboarding, I will be so debilitated for a week afterwards that I might not be able to work. So I'm cognitively slower. I can feel my body moving slower. The dexterity in my hands is affected, and I have to rest a lot. And that has been extremely challenging. The other thing that I've noticed is that the people that suffer from this are the people that tend to push themselves. They're go-getters. They've always been ambitious. They always are pushing the limits, and they're pushing the limits of their body. And so a big thing for me is, and I think for anyone that's experiencing this, is learning to accept rest and I'm learning to pace myself. And so there's a lot of strategies that go into this. And also in the future, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the treatments that I've tried and what has worked for me so far. But I am not recovered at this point. So I would say that I'm probably at about 80% functionality, but then I seem to have flare-ups throughout the year where I will go down to maybe 50% functioning, maybe less. And those are moments where I have to stay at home and completely rest. And it's extremely challenging to work. I cognitively have no resilience. I feel like I can't take information in. And basic tasks like taking a shower take an immense amount of energy. So it's these are decisions that people with this disorder have to make is, am I going to wash the dishes today or am I going to take a shower? Because that is all I have energy for. And the lack of awareness around this is mind-blowing because the amount of people that suffer from this is immense. So Epstein-Barre virus is present in like 70 to 80% of our population. It is a herpes family virus. It spreads incredibly easily. Mono is called the kissing disease because that's how easily it spreads. You could share food with someone, like kissing a loved one, anything like that. Not to mention potential genetic spread from a parent or something. And also, for example, blood transfusions are not tested for Epstein-Barre virus. So if you've received a blood transfusion, you don't know if that virus is in there. And so this is just massively spreading throughout our society. And one thing that was really mind-blowing to me a few years ago, I was working in oncology, and I went to a oncology workshop where the presenters were talking about cancers that are specifically linked to Epstein-Barre virus. So not only is this virus spreading rampantly throughout society, but it causes cancer, and it can cause this severe chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis. And so really, there are a lot of people out there that are begging for more funding and more research. The amount of funding for research for this is ridiculously low. And so part of the reason why I wanted to make this video is just to talk about my personal experience and how this helps me as I'm working with my clients, because I look at each individual person and the amount of ATP their body makes for energy, that's different for every person. And so we can't prescribe the same exercise program, lifestyle changes. We can't do that for cookie cutter across every person. We are all so different. Our bodies work extremely differently, and there is so much nuance. And so that's really helped inform my practice as a wellness coach and as a trainer. And I also want to bring awareness to this issue. There's a really great documentary by, I don't know how to pronounce her last name correctly, but Jennifer Brea. The documentary is called Unrest. And she also has a TED Talk that is about her experience. And so if you're interested in this or you feel like your symptoms sound similar, then I really encourage you to check that out. And I will be talking more about my experience with ME/CFS and what I'm doing today to try to help heal myself and what I've gone through in the past that has and hasn't worked. So thank you so much. I wish health and happiness for everyone out there. And please message me if you have any thoughts on this. It would be really helpful to hear from the community about what has been helpful or what you'd like to hear more about. You can also check me out on my website, which is theholisticclimber.com. Take care.